Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, ghost strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with Chef Marisa Baggett. Marissa, so happy to have you here on Taste Buds.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, you have an awesome backstory. So, who are you, and how did you get to be the chef storyteller, awesome person who you are?
Wow, that is such a loaded question. How much time do we have exactly? So I am a professionally trained sushi chef, but I also owned a kosher deli. So I guess you could also say at one point I was a kosher deli maven. And so I kind of have blended those two worlds in the past and brought a lot of my Japanese training into, my Jewish food. And then within the past year or so, I decided to focus mostly on plant based and plant forward food. So that is kind of my culinary on a plate.
I love that. What has that journey been like for you? Let's start with the sushi chef thing. I mean,
Sure.
where on earth did that desire come from?
So I never set out to be a sushi chef. If you'd asked me, 20 something years ago, what I was going to do in the food world, I would have told you absolutely that I was going to be a cake designer. That's actually what I was doing. I was designing cakes and catering. And I had this really cute little bistro restaurant in a university town in Mississippi, of all places. And a client came to ask if I would cater a party. And I said, sure, what's the menu? And they said, let's have sushi. And I'm like, great, let's do it. And that client left, and everybody was looking at me like, are you out of your mind? Like, do you even know what that is? And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. I'd never seen sushi before. I'd never tasted sushi before because we're talking about this was still before a time where sushi was everywhere, including, small towns like the one I grew up in, which has like, I think, four sushi bars now, but there were zero sushi bars then. So I came to sushi, basically out of the blue.
And then how did you pull it off?
So I went to the library to get a lot of Japanese cookbooks. And I thought to myself, okay, because what I knew of sushi, which wasn't at all true, was that sushi was raw fish. And I thought, okay, well, if I don't do any raw fish and I won't kill anybody. And so we'll just get through this party and we'll be done with it. So I looked at these books and I figured out how to make the rice from a recipe and I just kind of made the rest up. I thought, they're asking for all this stuff. I don't know what it is. So I kind of just got very creative and made stuff up.
And how did it go over?
It went over really well because apparently what I didn't know at the time is that sushi wasn't really one of those creative things. People went to sushi bars to get the things that they like to get. And I didn't know that because I'd never been to one before. So I was making like, I thought, okay, I'm seeing a lot of pickled stuff. So I'm going to do a pickled okra roll, or I'm going to do some fried fish and put it in a roll. Like I just had made it up.
And so that was like your gateway into, oh, this is cool. I need to learn more.
It was my gateway, and I was having, like, the time of my life, I'm in my very young and early in my career, and I've got my own place, and I'm, doing this new thing, and people are telling me it's cool. I don't really know because I still haven't had a chance to go to a sushi bar, and I think the moment that really changed everything for me is when, someone from a nearby town called to make reservations, and I was like, "Oh, I have made the big time." Like, that was a big deal that somebody was coming from a town that actually had a sushi bar to come to my place. And so, that evening when they showed up, they wanted to make sure I was gonna have sushi. They had some people they wanted to impress, and I was like, I'm so like, this is so awesome. They showed up and this guy walks in followed by 12 Japanese businessmen. They had just landed from Japan.
Of course they did.
Ah, and that was the moment when I kind of lost it. And let's just say I grabbed a bottle of something and took myself to the bathroom because I was going to lock myself in there and never come out. Just a little private kiddish club for one. And when I did finally come out, I told myself very firmly in the mirror, you will never, ever, ever, after you get through tonight, you'll never play sushi chef again. Like this whole sushi thing that was cute, you're done. So I went out, did the thing. They ate it. They ordered some more. They were
Much
very
to everybody's
respectful.
surprise, right?
Yeah. They were very, very, very polite. And I thought afterwards, what if this is something I could really learn how to do? Like what maybe the problem wasn't that I was doing the creative stuff. It's just I didn't know what I didn't know. And I wanted to be able to stand in front of anyone and say, I know what I'm doing. And so that was the point where I decided I want to become a sushi chef.
Amazing. And so, but now you're doing plant-based. So where did that where were those crossroads?
A lot of those crossroads came when after I did actually go to sushi school and I became an actual sushi chef and worked behind a sushi bar. I started meeting more people in the field and I ran across people who cared very deeply about seafood sustainability. And so very early in my career, I was introduced to that and it became something that I thought about a lot. And as I went kosher, my the seafood species that I was using, they kind of shrunk naturally anyway. And when you're doing a lot of interesting things with sushi for say like a bar mitzvah, you can't just make the same 2, 3 rolls. So I got really creative. And of course, because of the boundaries that I had to work within, I started getting very creative with plants. And I fell very much in love with making sushi that was vegetarian. And I think that I was probably always kind of on this path of heading towards only making plant-based sushi. It just took me a while to get there.
That is so cool. So your Jewishness really helped guide the what you've created now.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I would say that, I've always kind of looked at, um, you know, what it is that I'm feeding people, how it is that I'm feeding people. And even before I went kosher, I would say that there was kind of a form of, Jewish hospitality that I brought to my customers at the sushi bar.
And you're in the South.
I'm in the South.
And people also do not associate that with Judaism. I mean, more now, probably, right?
That is very correct. And actually, my sushi journey and my Jewish journeys are actually very much entwined. So while I actually did a lot of really kind of interesting things when I was going through sushi school, I was also embracing Judaism. And so there was always this kind of, tug and this kind of pull between, how I'm going to show up as a Jewish sushi chef and, the issues of kashrut and, also the issues of, am I going to work Friday nights? all of these things. Um, yeah.
How much of Judaism was part of how you raised, or it wasn't until you got into the sushiing, we made up a new word, that you saw this light, I guess, for lack of.
Oh, I love that word, sushiing. Yeah, so it wasn't until I went on this sushi journey that I actually, just like, sushi, there were, not that I knew of, There wasn't a strong Jewish community where I grew up, and I didn't know a lot about Judaism. And so I think that in addition to being on a search for what my culinary path was going to be, I think the search was also there, kind of maybe a little bit more silently, but for what my spirituality would be as well.
I love that. And food is such a connector anyway.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Do you remember your earliest food memory and what inspired you to become a chef in the first place?
So I think back, when I was growing up, all of the women in my family were amazing cooks. And I come from a pretty large extended family. And it's the kind of family where everybody has that one dish that they make, that, we're having this, and this person is bringing this because they always make it and they're the best. And I just kind of always had in the back of my mind that I was going to inherit something. But also, I was also very curious about what other people ate. And I don't know if it's a food memory so much as a curiosity memory, but I just remember one of my favorite things about babysitting other people's kids would be that I could go and look through the mom's cookbooks and their Southern livings and their good housekeeping. And I just loved learning about what other people were eating. And I think that that really drove my passion for, wanting to learn more and become a chef.
I
Yeah.
like that. So you kind of had the well, let's go full on metaphor. So like the whole potluck wasn't
Yeah.
just the meals, you had the potluck of the cookbooks
Mhm.
everywhere you went and you had that curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that for me, I love to learn. And I think that that's one of the big things that pulled me to Judaism is, constant lifelong learning. But with food, there was just this pull of, I've got to know what people are eating and why they're eating it. Yeah.
And for did you ever come up with that signature dish in your youth, or is it something that you're still on the exploration, or what is it now? Because I always feel like we all have like at least three things that we can make at a moment's notice,
Mhm,
right?
mhm. Yeah, I will say that I have some signature dishes, but they're not really the kind of things that, people are wanting me to bring to the potluck. Not the the food that we did back then was very, very traditional. And while some of the people in my family are more, experimental and open to new flavors, there's kind of this, like, it's very Southern, and most of the things that I do are a little bit, creative and outside of the box. So, mine are kinda reserved for more like "Oh, let's have some fun."
For example,
For example, yeah, so I have this sweet potato that I make, and it's like a Japanese style, sweet potato crème brûlée. And it's absolutely phenomenal, and it's kind of like my take on Japanese custard potato, which I think it kind of went viral a few years ago on TikTok or something, but it's just this really nice baked potato that's got custard on the inside and a nice brulee topping. And while my family absolutely adores sweet potatoes, if you were to tell them that I was bringing the custard sweet potatoes in lieu of the sweet potato pie that my aunt makes or the sweet potato casserole that my sister makes, they would not be pleased.
but if you also brought the traditional, then it would be okay.
But if I also brought the traditional, it would be okay. Yeah.
I have to go get some sweet potatoes because that sounds absolutely delicious. I have a thing with orange vegetables. So I'm a big carrot
Mm.
person
Mhm.
and sweet potatoes, and I've absolutely no idea why. Maybe because that was my favorite color as a kid, just kind of got infused in me. I have absolutely no idea. I love this creativity that you put into your creations. What advice do you have for people to get them to tap into that?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that I find helpful when I'm being creative, instead of just looking at it as, oh, I'm going to be creative, I look at it from a few different angles. So take a dish that you're going to make, say, I'll give you an example like mishmash soup, which is, that classic deli soup that it's got, it's a little bit of something for everybody. It's got the matzo ball, it's got a crepe look, it's got, some noodles. And it's like, who wouldn't love that soup? So for me, I look at that and I think, okay, well, at the end of the day, what is that crepe look? It's a dumpling. And so why couldn't that dumpling be a gyoza, which is, bringing in a Japanese element? And then if I'm going to do that, then I think, okay, well, how can I round out this while still keeping the dish kind of, recognizable as something, the mishmash, but you could add a little miso to the broth. So just little small tweaks can make such a huge impact.
Awesome. And I know that you have a recipe that you wanted to share. So if you go to jewishjournal.com/podcast, you can read the article and get Marissa's fabulous recipe. Fabulous recipe for what?
Miso mishmash soup. I promise you, you're going to love it.
And it's taking something traditional and using your creative spin.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing people could get even more creative with it.
Oh, absolutely. You could use, when you think about making your matzo balls to go into the soup, you could substitute the oil in the matzo ball with sesame oil to give it more of an Asian flair. You could use a different type of noodle rather than, an egg noodle. You could use ramen. Yeah. There's a lot of flexibility in that one bowl.
I love it. And I make soup year round a couple times a month because I love it. And you've just opened a whole new um, thought process for getting creative with it. So I'm particularly excited. What other good tips do you have for being more creative? Because I think that's the big problem a lot of people have is they're just bored. We
Mm.
love the
Mhm.
recipes we love, but
Yes.
we would love them more if they were more interesting.
Yeah. I think the one thing that we don't talk about as much is being willing to have a mistake. So sometimes, the one thing that's so great about kids and like, I've done a lot of cooking classes with kids and they will try anything. I wonder what this would taste like if I did this. And, I think that a lot of creativity is found in just the novelty of trying things. And if you try something small, you don't have to try a big dish because I know food is very expensive, but you could try, maybe just have a taste of this and try it together and see what you think. And at least then you'll know, well, that's not a creative combination that I love, but just I would say that it's really about trying a lot of things and seeing what happens.
So if you're cooking and you're making a sauce and you want to make it interesting, you could just ladle out a little bit
Yes.
and play with that.
Hmm.
And it makes so much sense, but we don't think we think of it as all or nothing.
Yes, yes, there's a lot of all or nothing thinking. And I think that when you take that away and give yourself permission to play and just have a little bit of fun, because it's a lot of fun when you look at it that way and take all the pressure off to make it Instagram worthy or to make it, to make, this masterpiece that's going to be Michelin star, it's just fun.
Is there something you know now that you wish you knew at the beginning of your culinary journey?
Yes. I wish that I knew that it was okay to to really bring all of the pieces of who you are to the table at once. For the longest time, I tried to keep everything separate. So, when I was cooking in Jewish spaces, I was, kosher or Jewish. When I was in the sushi space, I was, that was very once I graduated from school, that was its own little thing. And I really wish that I brought more of everything together. Southern, the Jewish background, Japanese training. I really wish I'd done more of that earlier in my career.
And you're doing it now.
And I'm
So
doing it
you
now,
got
so I'm
there.
still happy.
Amazing. Well, I'm so happy for you. And I really probably got a chance to talk. Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's marisabaggett.com. And you can sign up for my newsletter with recipes and just read interesting things that I put out there as far as stories about how I got to where I am now.
Amazing. Any final food for thought?
I would say that just give yourself permission to have fun in the kitchen again.
Thank you, Chef Marisa Baggett. So thrilled we got a chance to meet. And thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and or your favorite podcast platform. And if you go to jewishjournal.com/podcasts, you can read the article and get the recipes that go with each episode. I cannot wait to try the mishmash soup. You've opened like a whole new doorway into possibilities. You can also learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. Until next time, have some fun being creative with your food and bon appetit.